This is my work daily drive car, and it's very handy. It's got a reasonable size back, and I can drop the rear seat and get quite a bit in here, but I can't get a 2.4 metre long 1.2 by 2.4 metre full sheet of material in, which is, your standard size. And it has some handy roof bars on it, but they're not well enough spaced to really give support to a load that long. And I was actually driving over, well, it was about a 4-hour drive, a 5-hour drive with work, and I had some roofing. There was a little shed that had had its roof blown off by a mini tornado with some of our worker gear in it. I was driving over to replace it, and the load was overhanging at the front here, and the wind got in underneath it at 110 kilometres an hour, and it actually whipped up, and I had to do some rebuilding and so forth. And I was thinking, if I put a H-bar on the front, and we looked at it, I've actually talked to the guy that repainted the Buick, and behind here there is, oh no, actually behind these, which that one's a bit loose, there's a subframe. So I was thinking I could put a H-bar, a couple of bits out through here and here, into the subframe, and just put a H-bar on it. But when you look at the length of the front, it was actually way too long. And I had to rethink, and I've got the tow bar. And so it occurred to me that if I could put a, that's loose at the moment because I'm working on it, but if I put a bar underneath there, I can lock it with the bolt here and just have a H-bar that comes out and comes up here. And that actually works out quite well. It means I can shift my load back, and it does mean that while you've got the H-bar on, you can't open the rear, but you can get in through the back door. But if I made something that is able to be just clipped in place with a couple of pins, so when you go to pick up a long load and put it into the back of the car, drive there without it on, and then when you get there you just drop it on, put a couple of pins in, it takes a couple of seconds, tie your load on, and then drive home. Actually, another time I had trouble. I didn't have actually fail, but the roof of the Buick, is they couldn't cast a full roof, and so that's got marine masonite in it that's been covered with UV stabilised vinyl. And I went to pick up this sheet and bring it to Coyote, who was doing the job, it was flopping around terribly. Again, it was hanging out. It might have been a 2.4 as well, because that's a pretty standard size. But if I'd had this H-bar, I could have just shifted the load back, tied it on at the back as well, and just had a decent drive home. So I'm actually working on that at the moment. I've got a real problem. I'm actually not working at the moment. I'm waiting for a contract to be signed, and that's a long saga that I won't go into. But anyway, this gives me an opportunity to do some jobs. So this is one of them. But as well as working on this, I'm also trying to work on putting a digital readout onto my lathe. Still haven't finalised cleaning up the mulberry tree, and one of the reasons why I particularly want to do this is to be able to pick up ply to make a set of drawers that I'm working on for the workshop, and the reason I want the drawers, well, I want the drawers to tidy everything up and make it easier, but to make the drawers I want to get the Triton properly finished, and so I was missing some fences or at least end stops and so forth, so I'm making those. So every time I go into the workshop I start on one job and then I look sideways and I see something else, and I find myself working on a completely different job. But I will try and get this H-bar done because it's a job that's kind of self-standing and it enables other things to be done. So I'll go down and we'll have a look at what I've got done so far. Here's the plate. So I machined that hole. I didn't have a didn't have a drill big enough. So what I've done is use my micro head to put that hole in. I drilled it up to what size I could and then took it out the rest of the way. I just had a length of this stuff. My dad gave me a box or crate full of bits and pieces of steel, and so there was a longish bar of that, so I've cut that. I cut these bits off. So this is going up underneath the tow bar, and then the nut tightens up underneath onto this, and these stop it from turning. I went to get a square tube. I have out here the material. So these two here are the uprights. These two here, they go on either side, and this is the cross piece. So I just bought a bit of that material, and so they'll be probably about that far apart, and then light's not real good here because of the sun, but and then that'll go across like that, and weld that on. So to allow them to go on, I've got an offcut here of the same square tube. I was after some telescopic tube, well, some tube that was the right size to sit inside of this, and I couldn't get any there. This stuff is 50 and this is 40. That's 1.6 mil wall thickness. So I have these tabs that I cut out of 3 mil. So if I add 2 of those on, it takes it up to 46. So I welded, this is going on here like this, and another one on the other side. Here's the material. So those, I haven't welded those pads onto that one, but of course I didn't get everything clamped super duper, so this still won't quite fit in here. So I'll weld the other pads on now, and then I'll drop the whole thing into the mill, and I'll mill those down. I was using my new sanding belt, thinking if I cleaned up the dodgy welds, it might make it, but I think there's about half a mil, or thereabouts, interference. So if I just clip off a little bit in the mill, then I can weld these on, and it'll be a matter of, I do need to get these with enough clearance and also straight enough. Now you can see that that's not actually right angles. My little saw is not cutting very square at the moment. Put a new blade in it recently, but it's still chopping off. That's going to be squarer. But I need to make sure that these are on square enough that I can put those, there's enough clearance and it's square enough that these, two of these that are actually welded onto the cross piece at the top, these two will be able to slide on and off. So that's going to be a matter of getting everything as square as I can here, and so I'm going to have to be a bit careful to make sure that I'll be able to pull it apart and put it together easily. Now, if that means that it doesn't have to be super tight, it doesn't have to be, just so long as it doesn't rattle and carry on too much. Oh yes, I bought these two R clips. So I've got some rod. I'll turn up some pins and drill through, maybe even two on each, I don't know, but one on each should be enough. And so just so that the H bar drops on, and then a pin goes through and is held in place with an R clip. So there'll be no need to unbolt anything. So the next thing to do is to weld up, finish welding that up, so it's as ugly as that, and then mill them down to make them fit well enough that I can easily slide them in and out, and then weld them onto here and here, and make sure that they're square enough to allow me to take them apart. And then with that in place, I can then weld together the actual H bar, and then hopefully it'll all work as I anticipate, and I'll be able to go and pick up material to allow me to work on the drawers which I'm putting in here. So I might make a little video separate to this where I go through the, I keep switching from job to job to job. Every time I start on one job, I just think, oh, I'll just cut. And I had to cut these pieces of aluminium and make these fences. And I had to mill up these T-nuts, little T-nuts. I haven't built them yet, but they go in here and allow me to take these fences off. And in the same way as I've just gone sideways on this video, I keep going sideways on my work. Oh, I did buy a new saw. I've now machined both of these to neatly fit into the end of here with a bit of slop. Actually want a bit of slop. And to get it square, I've got these magnetic right angles. I'll put a spacer in the back to put this in the centre of that. Not that it matters, but I've got that bit of material. So now that I've got that held in position, I'll tack it there reasonably well, and I'll do both ends, and we'll see how good they look. Clamped together now. I've got a strap across there that's holding it the right spread. I put that on while it was sitting on the mount on the car. So that's just held in place by clamped in place by a piece of timber. So that's all held in position, so I can now tack that together. I've got this on. I've machined those bits, as I said. You can see I've drilled holes I thought they were the same height up, but that might be down to the... Anyway, so they're welded on in the way that I weld with the welder I've got. So that's seems reasonable. And here's the H-bar. So it just fits in the back. Welded the brace across it. At the bottom, these are the pins I machined up. Just got a bit of rod and turn them up in the lathe. These are clips. So now I'll put it on and we'll see how it goes. Well, I know it fits. As you'd expect, with something I just drilled by hand, it only goes on one way. So I have to remember, I have to mark which way it goes. I thought it went, and it didn't matter, I didn't know which way it went. But there, that's not going to go anywhere. And looking across the top of the two, so you've got the two roof bars and the H-bar. If we line up the two, it all lines up. The roof bars have got a bit of a curve on them, and so does the H-bar from where I welded it. You can see that there's a bit of a, I don't know what you can see, but there is a bit of a bow in this from the welding I did. But there it is. I'll have to do something about this is obscuring the number plate, and they're fairly strict on that. I'm thinking I'll put, I don't know whether I'll box in the end of these or not, but I'll put hooks on, or even just drill a hole to allow me to put in the hooks for the ratchet ties. Actually, just drilling a hole should be enough. But the coat of paint on all of it, and yeah, maybe a couple of holes drilled on the end just to hook into. And I was also thinking about putting some sort of a plate on the back here to stop the load from sliding backwards. Again, I might try it out before I decide. If I give it a run and see what it behaves like, I can decide if there's a problem or not. But that spans out pretty nicely to take a 2.5 metre, and as you can see, if we look here, that was going to be way too long from the front of that out to the front of that. If I was going to do 6 metre lengths maybe, but that's not going to go anywhere, so I'm pretty happy with that.